Hi everyone, this is Thomas Gunn at Des House, and today I'm going to make crepes. So I don't know that this is traditionally German. I mean, obviously I don't think so because it's a French word, but then again, so is rouladen. But this recipe is from my mother-in-law, who's from Berlin originally, and her father owned a bakery. So I think perhaps maybe in the Berlin region or closer to the border to France, perhaps crepes were more popular. I know where my mother came from, which is more central Germany. This was not a thing. They would make apple pancakes or potato pancakes. I could actually show you the apple pancakes one day. But let's make these crepes. I don't know, like I said, it comes from my mother-in-law, so I'm going to assume the origins are German because all of her recipes were German. So let's get going. This is one recipe. I suggest if you're a family of 4 to make a double recipe. So let's get going. So first you're going to need 1 1/3 cups flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar. Let's just give that a little whisk. So let me move that aside because now you're going to need 4 eggs. So I'm just going to break those into a separate bowl. And that's number 4. I always use large size eggs. And I got a piece of shell, there we go. Give these a whisk. To this, you're going to add a splash of vanilla. If you need an exact measurement, half a teaspoon is what you will need, so I'll do it exactly. Here's my half teaspoon of vanilla. Give that another mix. Then you will need 1 1/3 cup milk. I use 2% milk. I don't know if in the States if that's called whole milk, I'm not sure. So that was 1 cup, I need another 1/3 cup. And there we go. So now we're going to add this to the flour sugar mixture. So I'm just going to pour that right in. Now as you mix this, it's going to be lumpy. Don't worry because you will be adding some melted butter and that just somehow, I don't know how it does it, but it takes away all the lumps. So just give it a good quick whisk. I mean this breaks up most of the lumps anyway. So I have, it's supposed to be 1/4 cup of melted butter. I always end up using a little extra, so this seems to be like 1/4 cup plus a tablespoon of melted butter. This, I just melted it in the microwave, it's still warm. So as you're whisking this, just drizzle the butter in. And if you have any lumps of flour while you're whisking, this somehow breaks them apart. There we go. And that's it. That's it for the batter, guys. So now what I do is I pour this into a large measuring cup because once I'm making them, this is much easier. It's easier to pour them out of something that has a spout into the pan. All right. So typically a crepe batter should sit for a while, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to put it in the fridge. I mean, it could sit for a few hours if you want. I'm probably going to start cooking them in about 2 hours. So sometimes when you pull it out of the fridge, it's a little too thick, at which point you can add some more milk to thin it down. But you'll see when I get there what consistency you want and if I'm going to need to thin this down a bit or not. So this is going in the fridge. In 2 hours I'll be back and we're going to start frying them up. Alright, so we're ready to go. So here is my batter. I don't know if you can tell, but it's quite frothy, so it's, yeah, here, can you tell how thick it is on the top? So you need to stir that. Give it a good stir. It seems like the thickness is okay. I'll be better able to tell after I pour the first one in. Sorry about that, I just got myself an extra plate. So get yourself a pan. This one is about 9 inches, 10 inches across, because the bottom of the pan is going to be the size of your crepe or pancake, whatever you want to call it. Turn on your heat. I've already melted some butter. You're going to want a fairly generous amount of butter for the first pancake. The first one typically will stick. Just, expect it to happen. Don't worry about it. Even as if you go to flip it, it might break apart. Just kind of assume that the first one will be a loss. I tend to take my spatula and really scrape the butter, the melted butter, into my pan so that I know it's really well coated. You want your butter to start to bubble. And once that starts, I will show you how I pour the batter in, and then we're going to see right away if it's too thick or too thin. Typically it's not too thin. I've never had that issue with this recipe, and because that would be tricky, then you'd have to start adding more flour, and that's a whole different story. Alright, so I've got my pan medium-high. I'm going to try to do this over here so you can see. So you pour the batter in, and then you tilt your pan so that everything gets covered on the bottom. And now we're going to put this on the heat and we're going to let that brown. So, once you get going, typically if I was doing a double recipe for a family of 4, I usually had 2 pans going because, otherwise it takes quite a while. And like I said, the first one is probably a throwaway because there's a lot of butter, but this really helps get your pan ready for the rest, because for the rest of them, I don't add any butter. So this one looks like it's ready to flip. There we go. So now that I've flipped it, what I do with this first one, I just move it all around the pan so that I really get my pan well greased with the butter. And incidentally, this is the kind of color that you want to go for. It's just a very light golden brown. You don't want to go any darker than this. Let's see my bottom side. And also I find the first one is usually quite thick for some reason. Okay, just give it another flip. Just because it's the first one. I want to make sure I really get my pan greased. Okay, so just flip it over onto a plate that you'll have nearby. So let's try the next one. I'm going to turn down my heat because otherwise I'm putting my hand over the flame. I don't want to do that because I don't need to burn myself. So here we go. I'm going to pour some in again, and right after you pour it in, tilt your pan so that you get the whole bottom covered onto the heat. There we go. You're going to start to see just around the edges. As soon as they get brown, as soon as you see bubbling throughout the entire top, you're good to flip. So that's what, 10 seconds so far. There we go. Flip. There you go. And that's really all there is to it. You're going to keep doing this until you have no more batter. I'll do another one or two just so that you get the hang of this. I know it's kind of hard to see when I'm flipping the pan. So see, that's the underside. That's a perfect color. That's the top side, perfect color. Take it off the heat, put it on your plate, on to the next one. Turn down my heat so I don't burn myself. Pour your batter in, tilt your pan so that the entire bottom is covered as evenly as you can on the heat. You know, and as you get going, it goes quicker and quicker because your pan heats up. See, this one is almost ready to flip already. So typically what we serve it with, see, there you go, it's already done. We serve it with a tuna salad, we serve it with egg salad. I'll link those videos because I have those videos up as well. We serve it with syrup, maple syrup, the real stuff. We serve it with just sugar and cinnamon. The kids, their favorite was always with the tuna salad or the syrup. So, I mean, we would have this for supper, at least, well, not at least, we'd have it once a week for supper. So there we go, there's another one. I mean, it would go faster in real life because I wouldn't keep turning off my element, but in order for me to get my hand over here, I have to be over the flame. So I don't want to set myself on fire. And like I said, typically for a double recipe, I'd have 2 pans going. This one's ready to flip. I see the edges are browning. There we go. So yeah, so once they're all prepared, you would put you put a pancake on your plate, you put whatever filling you want over the surface, and then you roll it up, and then you eat it. You could go very fancy. If you're having a dinner party, I mean, it's a great appetizer or even entree if you grill or broil some asparagus. You could just roast it in the oven, a little olive oil, salt, pepper. You roast it in the oven, and then you would line 2 or 3 pieces of asparagus across the bottom, roll it up, and then you pour a nice hollandaise sauce over the top, sprinkle with a little dill or parsley, and that's a really nice way to go. You could do dessert crepes. You could fill them with that chocolate hazelnut spread that everybody seems to like. You could fill it with ice cream and drizzle with a chocolate syrup. And there's also a, I mean, I've never made it, but there's also a crepe cake you can make, which is just a ton of crepes. And I believe it's like a chocolate ganache that you would put in between each layer, which is very good. I've tried it, but I've tried it from a bakery, but I haven't made it myself. So this is another recipe you can use to make that crepe cake. Anyway, so I'm going to keep going as you see. I mean, this is a fast process, relatively fast. See, this one's already, I just poured it in and it's already good to flip. So I'm going to keep making the rest of them. And when I'm done, we'll come back and we'll finish up. All right, here we go. So that took me about, I'd say 10 minutes. Probably, maybe not even. This one made, so this recipe, I counted them out for you. It made 16 pancakes or crepes. Just a few points as you're going along. Maybe once in a while, give your batter a stir with a fork, just so that it doesn't all settle to the bottom, because what tends to happen is that once you're halfway through your batter, it starts to get thicker because things settle as it sits. So, but if that happens to you, just add half a tablespoon to a tablespoon, depending how much batter you have left, into your batter. Give it a good stir, and that'll thin it back out, and it's fine. Just keep going. If you notice that once you pour the batter into your pan, so what I normally do is I pour the batter into this area. I don't pour it into the middle. I pour it into this area, and then I swirl it so that it starts to run around the edges of the pan. If you find when you pour it in, it starts to immediately roll away, that means your pan's too hot, okay? So that's not a big deal, just turn your temperature down. I mean, you can also buy specific crepe or pancake pans, but as you see, it goes fine without. So I've got one here that we're going to plate. I've got some prepared tuna salad, so you put that on, spread it out. Use as much or as little as you like. And then you're just going to roll it up. And there you go. You have a crepe. It's nicely filled. You can fill it, like I said, with anything you like. This one is filled with the tuna. Like I said, there's egg salad, syrup, sugar, applesauce, sugar with cinnamon. You could do a dessert crepe. You can make a cake out of the crepe. You can do entrees with, roasted vegetables and a hollandaise sauce. So give this a try. I'm sure you're going to like it. Lots of uses for it. It's a very versatile recipe. Not that hard to do. It might take some, practice to get going in the beginning, but once you've got it, they knock out really quick. So like this video, if you ring the bell on your screen, you'll get notifications when new videos go up. Have yourselves a great day, and bon appetit.